All right, we're live. Do you ever scour the idea forum and find lots of instances of the exact same problem that admins or developers are looking for all over the place? Because that's what we did this weekend. And you know what we did? We created a solution for some of them here on System.debug.
Those damn touch screens.
Is that what you have? You have a touchscreen?
Yeah, I just play it off of my phone here.
I gotcha. I thought you were like really fancy and had one of those like high-end.
No, that's why occasionally if I get a text or something, you might hear boop going on right through. It'll come right through the mixer there. But
I gotcha. Yeah. All right. Well, tonight, you got me as usual, Brian James. You got Ryan Headley and the kitchen cupboards.
Yeah, the kitchen cupboards are here.
They're waving hello.
I've heard of getting the kitchen sink involved. Oh, there it is.
There's RJ. All right. Okay,
I believe we might be working with background noise with RJ, so he'll be in and out.
Yeah, little baby noises. RJ's got twins, if you didn't know. He's living an exciting life.
Twinsies.
Twins. All right, so as we all know, Salesforce is moving towards Lightning components, Lightning, everything. That's not a new story. It's 2 years old now, right? But some of the same problems exist in Salesforce today with Lightning components that have existed since Salesforce's inception. However, with Lightning components, we can solve at least one, if not more, of those problems. And tonight we're going to talk about that. What's funny?
I like how you're like, we can solve at least one. There's at least one single problem that Lightning handles. Well, thank goodness too, because otherwise they would have invented it for no reason.
Man, you're just ruining my mojo. Ruining my mojo.
We're gonna include Lightning. It doesn't do anything new. It's just we just call it Lightning.
we just call it that.
So one of the problems, if you ever scour the idea exchange from the beginning of time to even now, is polymorphic fields. Right? And for those of you who may be watching and confused about what a polymorphic field is, it's the ability to have a single lookup field on an object that can be associated to any other record in theory in your org, correct?
Yep.
So programmers have been able to accomplish some kind of functionality for this over the time, whether it be with Visualforce pages or other things. And there's actually even a app out on the App Exchange. And I was looking at it this morning for polymorphic lookup fields. However, with that one, it's not reportable. Okay, and therefore that kind of like makes it a little bit harder to utilize the field for any realistic purpose, right? So this weekend, the three of us here at System.debug, we got together and we decided that we were going to take an idea for polymorphic fields and actually create a Lightning component for it that would allow a user to not only associate any record to any other parent record in the entire org, but allow it to be reportable to some small degree. And that's what we wanted to share with everybody tonight. We're going to share some of the code. We're going to share the functionality, give you a little demo. And for those of you in chat, we're actually going to share a install package link so you can jump on in and start messing around with it afterwards. So let's get to the demo. Shall we do that?
Demo.
All right. So to kind of start off with what's going on here, the whole meat and potatoes of this is really a custom object. Okay, and all that custom object is doing is storing data in order to allow us to transition between the different records. All right, and so this is what the object would look like that comes along with the installed package, and very couple of fields, nothing really extravagant there. But what's neat about this is that I can go to, say, an account, and I've already got some of these set up, and I've already put the field here on my account. But one of the cool things is that we've actually designed the field to look and feel and function exactly the way a normal Salesforce field would do. It's how we do. So we've got our That's how we roll. So we've got a mouse over with a little edit button here. We can double click into this, and what's going to allow us to do anything here is that once we actually start typing into this field, and you can see right now I've got this associated. I'm on an account and I'm associated to an opportunity, but I can start typing in pretty much any type of text that might be existing in my org. And actually go back to Burlington, because we did have an opportunities Burlington as well as an accounts Burlington. So now I've actually associated this to an account record, right? And what's really neat about this is that because of our custom object, we've put a field on there called type. And what happens with the type is it actually stores the S-object API name of the object that we're connecting to. And what this allows us to actually then do is in our report builder, we can now run reports based off of this lookup field. So in our Lightning builder, not a new folder, if we were to create a brand new report here for our accounts, which is what I've put my field on here, and we'll just do all time and all accounts, but we're going to add a single filter, and in my case, I've actually named my custom field that I put on the account object account type. And what I can do is go out and find only accounts that have account lookups, right? And in this case, it's the one account that we just set up, therefore making this reportable, right? It gives some functionality into something we didn't have previously, which is really neat. So what's really happening here, okay? What's really happening in the overall is that, as we said, it's just a Lightning component. We're just simply taking a Lightning component and dropping it directly into our page, all right? And as I said, I created a lookup field to my junction object that I created called account type. That's the only thing that's going to be required in order to make this work. So if I was to take this right here and just drag this onto the page, I would just go over here and type in the API name of the lookup object. Actually, I should probably figure out what I called that field before I do that. But nonetheless, this is where it would go. You would just simply type in the API name of the actual object and or of the custom field that you created, the lookup field, and that's how we're going to make our connection. That's the only field you have to create. Other than that, it's just a matter of dragging and dropping the component onto the page in order to obtain our functionality.
Is this not where the Lightning magic just kicks in and it knows what you did for you? It can't figure that out? Is that what you're telling me, Brian? It can't figure that out?
It can't figure that out. It can't do that. Not this time.
You still got to tell it some things, man.
That's right. We got to tell it some things. But yeah, so right here, polymorphic join C, this is the field that I originally had. This is the lookup field that I put, and this is the only thing that it's looking at. And what's happening there is that on the actual record itself, it's just storing the ID, right? And it's using that, and it's querying up, and all of that's actually happening here in this backend on the component itself, okay? Now, this was something where me and Ryan were kind of screwing around with quite a bit yesterday and debating proper Lightning syntax. I'm very much heavy into jQuery and JavaScript. That's where I feel the most comfortable. And with Lightning being kind of a JavaScript framework, I feel like I can kind of play around in there. However, that being said, there are quite a few things that Lightning does natively that you don't actually need to write your own JavaScript or jQuery for. And that's where mine and Ryan's kind of little debate was coming in. Because of page attributes, actually.
Yeah.
I personally don't like these things. It's just a thing. I feel like in my DOM, I don't like having variables. It's weird to me. It's foreign to me.
To me, I don't really consider that the DOM so much, but it's not visible.
I know, but it's the UX.
I like it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I like it.
So those were some of the things that we were kind of debating on what you would do and what you didn't do. Now, some of the things that we're learning traits for me, I guess, things that I learned, let's go with that, was this helper.js file. So prior to this, with all of my other Lightning components, I would dump everything in this controller.js. Now, Megan, I know you're on. And you must remember, I blasted you quite a bit over how excited I was about the helper.js file. And I had completely wrong. I was like, oh, so you put all of the stuff like this inside of your controller and all of these other things in the helper. And that was backwards. You actually put all the stuff the opposite, where you're making all your calls out to your Apex classes inside your helper, and you're just kind of using your controller to handle a lot of the other page stuff, right? In my case, I'm actually handling a couple of JavaScript onload, checking for button clicks and all that kind of stuff. So the front end, really not a bunch. It's just more or less send this data, pull this data, display this data, right? But the real stuff kind of happens in Apex, which, you know, that's bread and butter for us developers here on Salesforce is what we can do with the backend, right? So in the backend here, if you remember our map episode from the last time, I talked about doing this. This is something I tend to do a lot, which is where if I'm dealing with a lot of standard objects, because there are so many standard objects inside of Salesforce, and it's hard to account for their different variances, whether it be their name field in this instance, because if you notice, you know, work order's name field is work order number, cases name field is case number or subject or title. They're not always going to be name, and that can make it kind of difficult as far as dynamic programming, because you now have to actually loop through that S object and discover what its name field is.
Mm-hmm.
That being the case, I don't find that necessary for every single, I don't think that this would be a component you would use to associate to, say, I don't know, it's really hard to say, record type, right? Because that's an object inside of Salesforce. It would get pulled back if I didn't try to limit my standard objects that I'm returning, right? You would never look up to a record type. A record would have a record type, period. So that's why I do stuff like this. And that's why I kind of covered that a little bit more in the map episode last time. But just sort of walking through the code here, I've basically gone in and on page load, we're checking to see if our object actually has a record that we've associated it to or not. If so, we're going to want to go out, we're going to want to grab that field label, so we display that, not the API name, and we're going to want to go and find out our poly information via that. And once again, once again, I'm going to actually get our link and share that in the chat. So if one of you guys has the link I sent you, you should post that in the chat so our viewers can actually look through this should they want to.
Again.
It's a simple.
Once again. Which link?
I don't know. Either way, it's a unmanaged package, so you'll have access to all the code in it and all the comments once Ryan or RJ figures out.
I think RJ's looking for it. I think you sent it to our general chat, so it'll be in the comments or in the ongoing dialogue here shortly.
Cool.
If you can't find it, I'll throw it in there because I'm sure I have it somewhere.
So I've gone in and I've commented, put a whole bunch of comments, make it a little bit easier to understand it. Obviously, we're using functionalities such as the Aura enabled methods. Those are going to be always required in order to access any sort of a Apex method from inside your Lightning component, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And what we're doing here, like I was saying, is that the first thing we're going to do is go and check to see if there's any current values that are associated to it, and we want to make sure that we display that data appropriately, correct? So one of the things that you notice is that we are making sure to grab the actual label of the parent object. We're going to put a colon, and then we're also appending the name field of the record that it looks up to. And this just makes it easier for our users to understand what's happening here, right? And where the association is happening. And then after that, everything else just happens based on user interaction. Okay, so if a user wants to edit the field, you know, they're going to want to start typing. That's going to actually send out a call to this method right here, which is simply, I say simply, but really what's happening is that we are actually going to create a SOSL query for every single object we have access to in our org, which we are also checking for down here, whether or not our user is able to utilize that object and whether or not it's searchable, because we don't want any null pointers coming back due to that, or any other errors kind of getting pushed back because we didn't handle that stuff. So
what kind of limits you got on that SOSL? What kind of limits we got here?
3. In this instance, I'm only going to return 3 records of any sort of object. So the more records you want, you're going to want to have to keep searching, right? You're going to have to refine your search. And the reason for that is simply heap, right? It would just take a ton of data the more you're going to query for all of these things.
Yeah, that's what I
So-
was kind of getting at. I wanted to see if you were going to explain it, but yeah.
Right.
Sweet.
And so what we're doing here is we're actually just creating a giant Sossel string with every object, its name field, and where the name field is like our search term. Okay. And what ends up happening is that we end up sending that back. We do our search, and down in here in our get search results method, we are combining all of that data, right? As well as actually going out and getting tab data, because some of our objects already have tabs set up with icons, and it's kind of neat to be able to display those icons in our select list, just to make it quicker to find the object you're looking for, right? So we're going out, we're fetching our tab data, we're getting our schema data for our objects that are getting returned and all that kind of stuff, and then we're building out our display for the search functionality, which is what's happening here. So if I type test, or if I type hotels like we saw, not test hotel. And that's all it's doing, is it's actually just generating a giant Sossel query or Sossel search for all of these things. And then when we inspect these, you can see that on each one, we're just simply saving the value, which is the actual record ID, which is what we're going to get. And then we're also associating the LI element with its ID. And that's because we're storing some data there that we want to pull out. We're not storing it on here. We have a map of data, or a JSON object in the back end, that we're pulling these values and using them as the keys for that JSON to quickly retrieve it, versus having to loop over the data.
Right.
And I can read the chat too.
So for anybody not watching the chat, whenever Brian says Sossel search, it sounds like he's been drinking. So
Can anyone say Sossel search without sounding like I'm drinking?
Sossel search. I don't
Sossel
know.
search.
I don't know if
Sossel search.
I'm
Sossel
always
sauce?
drinking, so it's always accurate.
What was the link that you wanted me to look for again? I already forgot.
The package link.
The link to the package.
Oh, never mind. I got it then.
All right, there we go.
Posting it to the chat now.
We greatly appreciate that, RJ.
Yeah, so you'll be able to download and install this into a sandbox or a developer org and mess around with it yourself. And it's fully source code accessible when you install this, correct, Brian?
That's absolutely correct. And right now I can actually kind of go through and we can see how the setup for that actually happens. So
yeah, let's do that.
From here, we're just going to go into our Lightning component setup menu, and we're going to go into our object manager. And let's just say that we wanted to set this up on, let's do lead. Why not? We'll go to field and relationships. Since I've already got the package installed into this org, I can simply create a new custom lookup field. And we're going to go to our polymorphic join object and click next. Click next. Who gets permissions? You get permissions. You get permissions. Everyone gets permissions. So we're going to
Clearly we're not being good stewards here, but that's okay. This is demo. This isn't a land called demo where everybody is an admin.
Everyone's an admin. So now that we've done this, we can actually go into our lead object, and we're going to go, and I'm sure admins know another way of doing this, but I don't. I'm going to edit my page here. And I really like this on the detail page because it looks so much like a normal field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially with that lightning card wrapped around it. I mean...
How do I forget this all the time? I just made it. Anyone remember?
What are you forgetting?
What I called this field.
I don't know what you called it because I was watching the chat.
I gotcha.
You move
All
so
right.
fast.
I know. So we're going to activate this. We're going to assign this page as our lead default page. Save it. Hit back.
Details.
I totally.
It's so pretty.
But that's all it takes to configure it. Now that it's there, it's all squared away and set up. It's just a matter of dropping the component onto the page and knowing which field. I don't know what my field is. I know I totally messed that up.
So I can't send the link in the chat because Google doesn't want links in their chat. It says remove any web address and try again.
Oh, well, then we're gonna have to put it in the comments of our page, aren't we?
And we're gonna
Yeah,
have to
put it in the comments, and you could even tweet it out or put it on our website or Facebook page or any of the various outlets.
Tweeting now. Da-na-na-na-na.
Well, let's get that out there right now. Then let's make that happen. Let's go to package manager, and then this one.
I can tweet it out right now from system.debug if you would like, sir.
Yes, please.
All right, there we go. I will tweet that. So this is for you, Megan. As soon as I figure out how to get into the Twitter, there it is. Tweet.
And I do want to put a.
I got to come up with something.
John,
go ahead.
John Lay actually joined me yesterday morning to test this as my very first admin test for configuration and setting it up and ease of use. The only hangups being I totally did not tell him what it was supposed to do prior to him setting it up. So, I mean, thank you, John Lay, for humoring me very much. I could have foobarred whatever you wanted. So I really appreciate you trusting me in that.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy that I would have never said, sure, let me just blindly install this thing you've told me nothing about into a sandbox or not.
Well, what dev have you met that you don't trust?
Myself. Sorry, I'm tweeting. There we go. I don't multitask very well. So it is now on our Twitter account. We'll put it in the, what do you call them? Comments, all that good stuff.
That's right.
So it's there.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
So yeah, this seems to work a lot like, the what was your example? Like the what ID and everything on tasks and things like that. So yeah, this is really cool that now we can just have, arbitrary lookups to whatever the heck you want, right? As long as you can find it and search it. So
well, and it's so funny because I know that as we were making this, I had a lot of people that I was, coworkers and whatnot that I was showing this to, and their number one question, what's the use case? And all I can think is, I'm just making it, man. Isn't that your?
Well, I kept asking you. I kept asking you too, like, what is the use case? But, I mean, it would have to be pretty specific. But if it was an idea out there, you said that's where you kind of got this idea, and I don't remember the source. But if it was out there, somebody's got a need for some sort of functionality like this, right?
Well, and that was the whole thing. Is actually, I was just trying to see if it was possible, and I knew it wasn't, but I wanted to find out. And then all of a sudden, I saw that there were so many questions on the app exchange or the idea exchange for why isn't this a thing yet? And that's when and I know you and I and RJ have pitched quite a few different Lightning component ideas out there, and we're going to be covering some more of them that we've built out in the coming episodes. Next episode, we hope to show one where we actually are generating Lightning components on the fly. Well, not generating the components, but launching them all on the fly without you ever actually having to put them on your specific component page. So that's going to be kind of a neat thing too, because you're going to be able to utilize that for stuff like Lightning out or other components kind of like inside of it, right?
Yeah, that was the one actually where I was having more of a time coming up with the use case for. But this one I like. This is really cool. So there's that. Let's see, but there's one other one that we were talking about briefly, but I haven't fully grokked it yet. But that was the ability to create a formula on custom objects that leverages Apex methods on the back end, right?
That's right. And I am so close, Ryan. I am so close. Okay.
Because he's diving into this crap. He's so excited. I think he may have even wet himself a few times. It's really funny. But I'm excited too. I just haven't seen it yet.
The messages over the weekend, man, are it's just fire. It's just BJ like, oh my god, I figured this thing out. Oh my god, I figured that thing out. He's just so he's like a little kid in a candy store, man.
But imagine being able to say, being able to include Apex logic inside of your formula fields, where you're passing out and or passing stuff and saying, thanks, Megan, I appreciate that.
Sorry, Megan just said she's not surprised that Brian had to pee. I know what you're saying, but it'd be really cool. Yeah, if you could you get an instance of whatever record you want, and then you can call dot whatever on that field and actually have that call some sort of Apex is kind of where I was going at one point. It's almost like an instance level method on a but it's from your Salesforce object. But I don't know what other ideas you were throwing out there. And, I got an Apple Watch around Christmas time, and all weekend my wrist kept buzzing because of all the stuff you were finding. And it was really hard to follow some of it. So I have to go back into the history and play some catch up. But I am absolutely fascinated by this possibility. So I show you that at some point. See how far Brian gets. We can dive in that. That would be really cool.
I was trying to eat dinner, and he's messaging me, and I'm like, ding. I'm like, oh, okay. Ding. Ding, 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 ding. And I'm like, oh, geez. Here we go.
Don't have a watch.
You gotta get you a watch, man.
You gotta get one, man. But it was just oh, my goodness.
Wait, were you really eating the top of that thing, though?
I was. It's, man, dude, people don't understand plastic.
He was really hungry.
It's not GMO. It's never been. It's not an organism that's ever been modified.
Free.
BPA free. No, sometimes you got to get some of the BPA in there to regulate your system.
Yeah, you got to have a baseline.
Baseline BPAs.
Megan says that she makes up fake use cases all the time just so she can build stuff. I agree.
I dig it.
That's good.
And really, if more developers are just scouring these idea exchanges, you guys are the ones that can be. Yeah, answer the questions, solve them. Lightning components are kind of really neat like that.
I mean, not even just Lightning, just any. You can removing this a little bit from Salesforce. You can go to Stack Overflow, Stack Exchange as a whole, and run through some of those things, and you'll be surprised what insanity you'll get asked. Like, hey, in JavaScript, can you do a statement like A equals 1 and A equals 2? Will that ever evaluate the true? And the answer is yes, of course. And there's a whole bunch of craziness behind it. But you learn all these new and crazy things. Even if you don't solve a thing, you learn a thing. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how we kind of expand. So, people out there that are also asking, I get asked all the time, where can I go to learn this stuff? And I just say, go right in and start making stuff up. Solve a problem.
Solve a problem.
So, yeah. And this is really cool. I'm excited to, really, really excited to dig into that whole formula thing. That sounds really cool. I would like to see how that's going to work. But yeah, so
we'll see.
What else? Go ahead.
No, what you got, Ryan?
I was just going to say, what else do you have in store for this? Or are we calling this it's alpha, clearly, right? But are we calling this you're done playing with that, you're going to focus on something else, and it's up to are we going to GitHub this thing so we can fork it and tweak it and all that stuff?
We definitely need to GitHub it. It definitely needs to go in a repo, and I really feel like this is just something people should play with. It's not technology that I care. It's something that everyone needs, right? If people need it, they should be able to use it, right? That's the whole point of open source anyway.
Yep, exactly. So cool. I've got nothing else. The floor is yours yet again.
Cool.
Oh, wait, I do have something else. Never
forget the rest of the house. You got a slide?
No, I lied. In the interest of being open and honest with anybody listening and not in the chat, this was 99.9% Brian.
That's true.
I added 2 lines of code, and that was just because that line required a closing tag. I added lightning card and wrapped it around the thing. So yeah,
I was the official hype man.
Yeah,
well, they were both very involved. I feel like I couldn't have done it without them.
What did I do?
It's a team effort.
We were sounding boards.
Yeah, Brian was like, "Yeah, I'm going to make a thing that does this." I was like, "Yeah."
They didn't tell me no. They didn't say that's really dumb. Didn't you have to
try some other thing? And I was like, "Yeah." And that was basically that was me. That was my contribution.
That was the hype.
Yeah.
So kudos to Brian for just diving in. I envy the time that he actually gets on weekends to do this stuff. I don't get that kind of time. I wish I did. So yeah,
you're just not
it's awesome.
Your kids enough, Ryan. Oh man,
ignoring kids. Yeah. I'm already in trouble 95% of the time. I don't need to increase that.
Dude, also Brian's kids are doing this with him. They're giving him suggestions. Hannah's next to him, Dad, what are you doing right now? Don't use that.
No, Hannah's next to me
Don't
reading
use that
your
right there.
chats, and they're always inappropriate.
No,
That being said,
what are you doing, man? You know,
they're never inappropriate. RJ's really.
Hannah's next to him. Hannah's next to him saying, "Why are you embedding jQuery in your controller?"
Yeah, she's like, "Don't put JavaScript in there.
Ouch.
Get that out of there." Why
Well, all
are
right,
you-
everybody. I'm going to call it. You all have a great night. Thank you so much. Make sure to join us next time for another Lightning Component episode because this was a lot of fun.
Oh, we're not going to do nested ternaries next time?
Oh my gosh,
That's
we need to talk about ternaries in an upcoming episode. That
Oh my
was
gosh.
going to be.
Nested ternary.
Ripping the wound open yet again. All
Dude,
I can
that's why I
say.
pasted.
Night,
that's why I
Megan.
sent
And
you
night,
that link.
everybody else that joined us tonight.
That's why I sent you
That
that
dude
link.
was
man.
so many. I got to bump out of here before I lose it. I'm
All
bumping.
right.
Bye.
Bye, bro.
Seriously, gonna lose my shit.